If you were down in the pits and you reported on the damage and spoke to Mr. Brooks, who will start this race from pole, but clearly they've got that car turned around.
Yeah, it wasn't really too sure. It looked pretty bad when it was coming down the back straight. Obviously the wheel was kinked in, but I think must just have been a rim and a tyre, as you said before, Richard. And so I think the James Marshall Motorsport team got it fixed really quickly. So it's a credit to them, and good to see Brooksy back out there on the front row.
He's a great character. Really up and about and loving his racing, and I think really enjoying his weekend here, but doing the double duties as well.
Yeah, he's not afraid to put himself outside his own comfort zone. You know, he hasn't got a lot of experience here at the Taupo track, but he just wants to do as much racing as he can, build on that experience, and add experience to the toolbox for future racing. And so it's a really impressive thing about Steve, and obviously he's going to be pretty excited to have another go at the standing start, and hopefully it won't be a smoke show like it was yesterday.
Well, that's a good point, isn't it, Stu? Because rolling start in Somerset GT, standing start now, so something completely different.
Oh, look, it is, and it takes a while to get used to it. As I said earlier, these cars are a bit like dragsters. They've got massive sticky slicks at the back. You can bog it down so easily. And in the past, we've had quite a number of Cup cars that have stalled on the line, and you can imagine the drama that causes all the way back through the field, everybody dodging and weaving. But Steve Brooks really played it probably the safest way, by lots of gas, smoking up the tyres. At least you're not stationary, but it's not that fast getting off the line.
30 minutes on the clock for this one in Pirelli Porsches. And the Cup cars at the front stand on the rev limiter at 8,000 RPM, and it's a really good start for Brooks. So no problems with the standing start this time by. Daniel Angleso gets a slightly better jump and will lead the field through turn one. He's very, very wide through the middle of the corner though. Brooks is going to sweep round the outside at two and retake the race lead. So Angus led for just a moment, but round the outside of turn one and then into turn two, the 992 GT3 Cup car, the latest gen car, took the race lead. Angus and Cutfield next, Sullivan in there, and these are the battles between the Boxsters and the 944s that have been entertaining us all weekend long. So solid start, not an ounce of wheel spin there, Ronan, and Brooks gets his car back to the race lead.
Yeah, and I think Daniel Angus will be pretty stoked that he got up through the staircase there without any cold tyre moments. So yes, he's done a great job to navigate that and put himself in a good position there in second place behind Steve Brooks. So I'm sure his goal for the rest of this race is just going to be to not let the gold and black Wolfbrook Motorsport Porsche get too far out in front.
Well, just to throw a spanner in that works, we've got pit stops coming up, and Steve Brooks has got about a minute longer to stop in the pits than Daniel Angus. So that's coming up. They've got to do a full lap, and then they can pit under a safety car, which is part of our rules. They're not allowed to touch the cars, so they're not allowed to do tyre pressures or anything else like that. So we'll see that starting to come up. And
it's almost caught the Toyota GR safety car at the back of the field.
Something was going on there.
Just gone into pit lane. That's how far in front Brooks is at the end of lap one. Absolutely flying. So yeah, pit stops in this race. That's going to be an interesting one to play out as the Cup cars at the front of the field go through.
Sure enough, Steve Brooks with the fastest lap of the race so far with a 35.4. 38.4 for Daniel Angus, so he's about 3 seconds slower Steve Brooks was about 3 seconds to the better of Daniel Angus that lap, and then Steve Sullivan there in third with a 39.6. So
not bad for a first lap. They're still getting wrong. They're still probably 3 or 4 seconds off what they'll do ultimately.
Yep.
But again, they've got to just measure those tyres, don't they? That's a 30-minute race. The guys with the biggest problem with the tyres are the little Boxsters. They're on road tyres, and they're good for 3 or 4 laps. They'll come on instantly. So as soon as you rock off the start line, they come in. But then 3 or 4 laps, they get a bit gooey, and then it's a bit more slidey, a bit more everything. So that'll be interesting to see. Some of them are going to have that strategy of just trying to conserve the Van Gisbergen style, just try and conserve. So we'll see what happens there, but it's much more of a challenge than the guys on the slicks.
So Ian Hill leading the way in the Boxsters, but he's got Tim Robinson in that red 777 944 just in behind him. What are they like as a race package? Because the 944, here they are, side by side on the run up to the hairpin. 944's beautifully balanced car, so 50-50 weight distribution, engine out the front, transaxle gearbox at the back, and they're a really light car. they should look after their rubber reasonably well over a longer race like this.
They do, but bear in mind these are road tyres, you know, so they're just overheat. They're not just really designed for this sort of thing. They're designed for track days, that type of thing. So yeah, look, they are balanced. That's a big 3-litre 4-cylinder motor, a little bit different to the car you've got at home. Just a bigger engine, that's all.
No, and nicer, faster, more comprehensive as well. Brooks 30.5 in front. So if he's got a long pit stop, these are the laps he needs to maximise to build that margin so he can come out in front as this race goes on.
I'm sure Steve's well aware of that. But James Marshall's on the headset for him, so he'll be making him well aware of all the information he needs to know to try and extend that gap as far as he can for when that compulsory pit stop comes through. He's going to be sitting there for a very long time, Steve Brooks, so he's gonna probably also have a bit of time at that point to think on how he can make maybe a few little changes and keep trying to just push on to try and extend that gap as far as he can.
Also, when you come into the pits is critical. So what they try and do, a bit like Formula One, they try and bring you in so that when you leave the pits, there's a nice gap. You've got some fresh air. The last thing you want to do is come out in a bunch that are fighting hard for position.
And Nicholas Cupfield, he's there in 4th place in that 996 car. So he was having a great battle yesterday with Robert Dong, and he's currently ahead of him at the moment. So a bit of a gap between those guys, and I'm sure Robert Dong, as you said, previous champion of the series, he's going to be pushing pretty hard to try and catch back up to Nicholas Cupfield there in 4th place.
Probably a little bit tentative going out, Robert, because he threw a belt off and there's water spurting out of the car on the race this morning, so they weren't even sure whether he'd be going to, you know, whether he'd cooked it or whether he could keep going. Obviously, he's still going, so that's all right. But on screen now, you can see those boxes. Look at them all just nose to tail there. And even though there's 2 different engine sizes, there's not a big difference in lap times between the 2 different cars.
The big block Boxsters we're talking about, 2.7 litre versus the 2.5. Extra 200 cc's makes all the difference.
I'm going to steal that and use that as my own from now on.
More than welcome.
So that's mine from now on, the big block. Sorry about that.
No, it's my gift to you. Nicholas Cupfield there in the 234 car. Stephen Sullivan in the mix as well. Robert Dong, Stephanie Chambers just in behind. Robertson still leading. So here we go, first of the cars. So David Mackrell in pit lane. And following in the 96 car as well of Kelly McEwen.
It's probably a little bit actually what you're just saying there, guys, about, you know, the difference in the size of engine between the Boxsters. It's actually sort of the same between the difference in Daniel Angus's car, which is a Porsche 991 Generation 2 car, versus, say, Robert Dong's car, which is a 991 Generation 1 car. So the Gen 1 991 Porsche was actually a 3.8 litre. Yep. When they went into the Gen 2 991, very similar looking car, very hard to tell the difference, but that's actually got a 4-litre engine. So another, big block v small block, 200 cc's, but it's noticeably different, especially we see that in Australia in Porsche Michelin Sprint Challenge between the Class B and the the Pro Class and Pro-Am cars.
Yeah, it was about 40 horsepower, I think, difference Gen 1 car to Gen 2, and quite a noticeable step up in performance. It was worth 1.5 a lap, really, between them. So a few little other evolutionary things. This is the 911's trait, which is just to continue to evolve with every generation. But that's the joy of this series as well, though, isn't it, Stu, that you can race them all?
Well, that's it. And, of course, we're a home for the X-Cup cars, you know, the ones that are no longer eligible for the top series. But, the thing about Porsche is they're running out of room to just keep giving more horsepower and bigger engines. As we know, we're going to that hybrid era, so they're looking at more downforce, bigger track, better everything except horsepower. So they're running it, that road has almost come to an end.
Yeah, the old Porsche Flat 6 is just one of the great engineering marvels, I think, of the automotive industry over the journey. Bunch of cars rolling into the lane now, so the race will become a little bit murky for a while everyone pits and there's still cars circulating. So Steve Brooks has stayed out on the racetrack, so to all the Cup cars.
I guess Steve will be taking advantage of the fact that at the moment he's got a clear run. So why not take advantage of that? Just keep rolling while the track's clear. As soon as you see a big bunch of cars up in front of you, that would be the time to dive in. The other thing to mention, of course, is that, as I said before, you can pit during a safety car. So that's a gamble that's sometimes worth taking. If you keep rolling until as soon as you see those wave yellow flags, in you go. That's a free kick.
Yeah, and Steve Brooks is hustling pretty hard there. He was right up on the curb there at turn 2. He's obviously pushing on. Oh, we've actually got a car that's gone round there.
That's Marin Vukic, who's experienced around here. Taupo does a lot of cup car racing around here in the Enduros and things, but something's gone wrong there. He's looped it round, got right off the track there.
That's a good-looking car, isn't it? So he was running in 10th place, and this is what happened. So it's lift off oversteer.
Well, yeah, he's done it himself, which is good. I'm pleased that nobody else created that problem.
Yeah, that looked like just there. He's gone in pretty deep. The rear's come around and just not quite able to bring it back. As we see there, James Marshall, head honcho at James Marshall Motorsport. He's just checking the lap times there, checking the consistency of Steve Brooks out in front. I'm sure he'll be pretty happy with the job his man's doing out there at the moment in the lead.
They're running a fleet of cars, aren't they, this weekend in Bridgestone GR86. You'll see their third and final race coming up later today. And, of course, in the Porsches and GTNZ, really well-equipped race team that's been building.
So what we saw with the 944 there is probably what I was talking about earlier. We're about at that point where those road tyres are now starting to get very gooey and not that grippy.
Yeah, and I guess that's the difference really when you're looking at cars. For example, Steve Brooks's car or Daniel Angus's car on the slick tyre. The slick tyre is only going to sort of just be probably coming up to temperature now after 10 minutes, you know, handful of laps, and the car will start to reach its optimum operating window within the pressures. Whereas, like you said before, the 994s and the Boxsters on the road tyre, obviously they come up to temperature very, very fast and up to pressure, but it's just going to be a game of managing that and not letting those tyres get too hot.
Exactly right, yep.
Ronan, you've raced these cars. You had a great season in Michelin Sprint Challenge in Oz. What's the most challenging aspect to get performance, as we see off the road? Is that the 777?
That's Tim Robertson, yeah.
So our leader in the 944s from 7th outright. We'll come back to Cup Car Driving 101 with Ronan Murphy in a minute, but he's had a spin coming out of the sweeper here.
And we've got someone off the side at turn 9 as well while we're just watching that replay. We couldn't quite see. It looked like a Boxster, but he's still going, so that's the most important thing.
Gee, that's a fast bit of road for Robinson to have a moment like that, just out wide on that sweeper up towards the hairpin. To come back to the point, what's the most challenging bit to get speed out of a GT3 Cup car?
I think obviously the weight distribution in a Porsche is quite weird because obviously the engine's right in the back of the car. It's not a mid-engine car, it's actually a rear-engine car. So the engine and the gearbox sit behind the rear axle of the car. So what that means is it's really hard to get front tyre temperature with all the weight in the back, and that's sort of there we've got a moment.
It's Mark McCorn by the looks of it, I think. We'll get a better shot of him. Look, that's exactly what we're talking about. Those tyres have suddenly gone off for these guys, and they are really...
that's Jacob Bellamy.
Yes, that's Jacob Bellamy. That's an unusual mistake. He's been a star, 18-year-old Jacob. Has worked his way up through karts, BMWs. We were talking about him earlier, weren't we?
Yep.
But that's an uncharacteristic mistake, but it just shows you how quickly these tyres have gone off, and they're catching people out now.
So through this final complex, I
like
wonder if there was
unloaded
contact from behind there.
Yeah.
We'll let the umpire judge that, but it certainly looked like just on the little change of direction there, you get the car all squared up. Off the road goes Stephanie Chambers in the 42, and into the lane comes Steve Brooks. So it's all happening at the moment. 18 minutes to go, Pirelli Porsche Championship.
So also we've got Daniel Angus there in the Kinsway car. He's coming for his 2.5 minute stop. So he's got about a minute less to stop than Steve Brooks. So we'll see how that plays out. It's probably still not going to be enough, I don't think, but we'll see how he goes.
Well, the margin was 27 seconds between them after 12.5 minutes of racing.
Right, so we're just over the halfway mark, aren't we now?
So there's going to be a charge at the end from Brooks carving his way through the field with that stationary time in the lane.
Steve Brooks is actually just about to put Daniel Angus a lap down now by coming across the line to tick off another lap. So yeah, we're going to have to watch with close proximity there to see once Daniel Angus comes back out what the gap's going to look like and what Steve Brooks is going to have to make up towards the end of this race to maintain that race lead.
That's Steph Chambers just rolling in her Cup car. That's our teacher from up Auckland Way, and she's been racing with us for a long, long time now. Graduated up through the ranks into that Cup car. That's one of the Cup cars we were talking about earlier. That's the the manual change and all that sort of thing. Sorry, that's Nick Cupfield, that car. Very, very similar car, both white.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like he's got some sort of an issue there potentially. They're rolling the car back and forwards. Oh, unless maybe it's just let the brake rotors roll over.
Exactly.
No hot spots.
That's it, dead right. They're a huge, great big brake on them, of course. But yeah, rolling backwards and forwards just allows them not so they don't get a crack or something at the wrong time. They're sitting there for quite a while.
Yeah, and going back to what you were saying before, Richard, sort of got interrupted with that. The events down at the last corner there, but no, for sure, and I think prime example with these cars, what makes them so challenging, you see there the 992 Cup car of Steve Brooks. Daniel Angus was probably a prime example in that first race yesterday, where you don't quite have the tyre temperature. They can be a real handful and really hard to hold on to. So that was something we always focused on really hard last year, and especially in testing when things were a bit more free rein and you can try some different things, was ways to try and get the front tyre temperature up, so that when the lights go out, you're fully confident and fully believing that you're going to have the ability when you first hit the brake pedal that the car's going to turn, it's not going to lock the fronts and fire off. So that's something you have to work on, because the guys that are masters at driving these cars they work them really hard on those warm-up laps to get those front tyre temperatures. And probably actually someone who's a pretty prime example of that, or who I was fortunate enough to see some footage of, was Ryan Wood. He was someone who his work rate on a warm-up lap in one of those cars was unbelievable, and he went on to have a pretty unbelievable season in Porsche Michelin Sprint Challenge when he competed.
He did a great championship battle with Thomas Sargent. Struggled at the starts, let's be honest, did Woody in that season?
Yep.
He struggled to launch these cars, which is proof that even the very best can struggle to get a Porsche Cup car, especially off the line. A little bit of debris on the outside of the road. That's on the run up to the hairpin through turn 9.
And let's face it, they're quite a specialist car to drive, aren't they, the Cup cars? They don't really relate closely to pretty much anything else out there. So it's a technique you've got to get used to, launching them out of the corners. That's their strong point, is the corner exits and the braking. So mid-corner speed, not so good on big sweepers and things like that, compared to, say, a Ferrari or a mid-engine car like an Audi R8.
It's just where with the obviously having so much weight over the back axle, it's over the rear axle, you need to be able to keep the weight on the nose as much as you can through the corner, and that's where guys, when you get the brake trace and your braking right and it's so critical in driving these cars well, because the longer you can keep the nose down and keep the weight on the front of the car, the more ability and the more the front tyre is going to allow you to turn and to hold corner speed.
Stephen Sullivan in the number 69 car. He's had young Ayrton Hodson, speaking of one-mate Porsche races, he had a pretty good season in Sprint Challenge in Oz this year. He's had him on the driver coaching roster this year. A little bit of a mistake going into the final complex. You give the guy a rap, and he's going to come into pit lane as a result. So clearly was at the point of committing to make his compulsory pit stop. They both come apparently from a speedway background. So Ayrton, I think, ducked out of the racetrack yesterday and went and cut some laps in the sprint car. So he was off racing last night, and Sullivan comes from a dirt track background as well. Car control is car control. If you can race a sprint car, you can drive one of these cars. We've seen that in plenty of different examples. So this race starting to play out now with a majority of key contenders having made their compulsory pit stop. We're yet to see Brooks in the lane. He is doing everything he can to build the biggest possible margin in the race lead before he pits, but he's doing that right now. In comes the number 881 992 GT3 Cup car, and he's going to have to sit there and twiddle his thumbs for a long time, waiting as the entire field goes past and unlaps themselves, and then we'll see where he is relative to guys like Sullivan, Dong, and others that have already been in the lane to make their compulsory stop.
Well, Robert Dong actually just into the lane as well, so he'll be one to keep tabs on. He's currently in 3rd place, and it's just going to be interesting to see where Daniel Angus ends up popping out now that he's made his stop relative to these other guys in the top 3.
Daniel's stop was properly long, and he's been shown, he's just crossed the line in 23rd position. So he's way down the field. I don't know if that was by design or whether...
Well, no, he had 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes, okay, yeah.
So a long time to sit there. But you see what's happening there. If you look at the timing screen, we've got a lot of the boxes now floating to the top. All they have to do is either a drive-through or a stop and go. So they will naturally float to the top, and then of course the Cup cars have to then get past them, through them all again. We've got Daniel there in the Kingsway car heading back on his way, and he knows what he's got to do now. He's got to do clean, consistent laps. And he's got a nice bit of fresh air in front of him. Look at that, he's got a lot of fresh air in front of him. So that's a huge advantage from now. Nice timing from his pit crew.
Look at that. Imagine looking at that as the driver. Bad enough for the team. So counting down 2 minutes, 20 seconds, 19, 18. That's how long he's got to sit there outside the James Marshall pits, just waiting and waiting. So Daniel Angus is 2 laps behind. It's 1:30 for a lap in a Cup car around here. The maths sort of heads out that he and Steve Brooks are going to be somewhere close together on the racetrack.
It'll feel like an eternity for Steve Brooks, and knowing him as well, he's very fast-paced and very motivated and onto it. So he right now he's going to be feeling like he's got enough time to have a coffee and read some emails, I think, because he's going to be there for a while. You can see him there. He's smiling away, knows the drill. Yeah.
But he'll love it,
love
though,
Steve,
because now he's got some incentive. He's got someone to chase rather than just cruising around out the front with a big gap behind him. He'll get stuck, and he'll love that. And I think that's why he decided to do this race with us. Bit of a challenge for him.
We need to work on the antics a little bit. There was a GT NZ race last year where Sam Fillmore, if I recall, had a really long pit stop time, and someone handed him a copy of the local paper, and he was flicking through that during his mandatory stop as Stephen Sullivan leaves the lane after his compulsory stop in the GT3 Cup car. So we'll give you an update of the running order when everyone cycles through. Meanwhile, there's some rallycross going on here. A couple of 944s bouncing through the undergrowth.
Synchronised dancing there, just about.
Beautiful slides. Tim Robinson, who's been in the thick of the action, our winner yesterday. Robert Dong leaves the lane as well, so his stop has been completed. Sullivan out in front of him from a pit stop point of view. Steve Brooks still sitting in there.
Steve Brooks still being shown in the lead, despite the fact that he's nearly finished his pit stop. So it's going to take a while for everybody else to catch up, essentially.
Yeah, and that's a credit to Stevie. Obviously, he did a great job in that opening stint to be able to maximise and extend that gap as far as he could. So I'm sure he's really starting to get the itch now. He wants to get back out there and cut some more laps.
Well, that's the advantage of starting on pole, getting out. You've got clean, clear laps, and you can just go. You're not fighting with anybody else at that stage. And he's used that well. He's used that to his advantage. There he goes.
Almost stalled it, so almost wasted a little bit more time, unfortunately, but got it running as Angus goes past. But that is to unlap himself. So this is going to be interesting. We need a lap for timing and scoring, basically to catch up and wait for Brooks to complete his full out lap to get an understanding of the running order. I think there's a good chance that the number 88 Boxster could be leading this race because he exited pit lane about 25 seconds ago.
So we've got nearly 9 minutes to go, which is only about 6 laps, something like that. So it's going to be the fun thing to watch as to whether we've got about 400 or 500 metres between Daniel Angus and Steve Brooks, whether he can recover that in that sort of length of time. I'd say he will get fairly close.
Well, as that's all played out, they've all sort of dropped back on the lead lap. So everyone's completed 11 laps, and Angus has already passed 3 cars through that sequence. So he's 20th. Matthew Burton now being shown as the race leader. It's car 449. Simon Thurlow in second position, 5 seconds behind. There's a little battle pack behind that. So Brooks now tumbling down the order. Robertson 5th in the 944. That beautiful red car crosses the line.
So quite a mix-up from what we've seen before with these cars.
I think Nicholas Cutfield's in a really good position here. He's 8th. He's 22 seconds behind the 449 car that's the outright leader of the race. But he's in a Cup car. He'll have good speed and he'll be 6 or 7 seconds a lap quicker and 22 seconds behind. So we'll watch for car 2, 3, 4 start to pick his way forward.
That's a good call, and he has done his pit stop, so it's not as though that's clouding the issue there.
And I think you're right there, Richard. To be honest, also it looks like Steve Sullivan and Robert Dong have lost out a fair bit in that. They're down in 22nd and 23rd, and they were both contenders for the podium at the earlier in the race. They were running second and third, so it's maybe maybe just not quite the best or most efficient pit stops. But like you said, Nicholas Cupfield's in a great position right now, and Steve Brooks will be working very hard to try and chase him down.
So Brooks is 20th, but will be the fastest moving thing in Taupo for the next 6 minutes and 45 seconds. Daniel Angus 18th, 41 seconds off the lead and doing 36s. The leader doing 44s. So 8 seconds a lap difference between them.
We've got a bit of a battle going on there between three of the Boxsters. It looked like it was getting pretty rowdy through that last section there. They went too wide through the last couple of corners.
Here they are.
This is classic Boxster stuff. You know, they haven't got the power. They're very hard to outbrake each other. Although Stephen Fang on the inside of Simon Thurlow, they're doing his best, but losing ground. That middle car of that pack there, it's Stephen Fang couldn't drive a manual car about 3 years ago.
Really?
All his track laps were done in PDK, paddle shift cars. So fantastic job teaching himself to drive heel and toe.
And that's the beauty of motor racing, though, isn't it? You learn something new every day and being able to develop new skills. Actually, we've got someone who's just gone off at turn.
That's
one of the 916s. Yeah. Can't quite tell if that's.
That's Nick. That's Nick. Unfortunately,
Cupfield.
Yeah. So something's.
He climbed to 5th position too. He was absolutely flying and doing 136s, and had taken 8 seconds out of that leading group in a lap. So he was in a really good position to take advantage of this battle going on in front. Fang and Thurlow continue their fight. This is for 2nd and 3rd on the road. Daniel Angus is 11th now and 34 seconds from the lead. 5 minutes to go. A lap ago, he was 44 seconds off the race lead.
That's a sad sight. Nicholas Cupfield, he was going so well, doing a great job, and effectively was probably he was the leader out of the challengers and the cup cars there for a while. So to see that, it's a sad sight. And Steve Brooks, actually our pace setter, he's now 17th. Oh, and we've got a safety car. So that's
wow!
They had to do that, didn't they? And look, there's a bit of debris sitting on the track just before Nick Cupfield too. So I guess they'll grab that at the same time. But look, they couldn't really keep going. That's a dangerous spot to be on the outside of that corner. So that's a shame, because what it does mean, though, is that anybody that's in position like Matt Burton there, who's just picked up behind the Supra there, that's the mustard-coloured 944, he's going to be, if this takes a while, he's going to be in with a chance.
So Thurlow taking his pit stop now. So they were yet to stop and rolled the dice with the safety car and waited and waited and waited, and it's paid off for them. So they get a little drive-through penalty. They lose a little bit of track position as the cup cars go through. Now, the question for mine, with 3 minutes and 55 seconds to go, if they get this green, there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars between the first of the cup cars and the outright race lead.
Look at that. Daniel Angus and Steve Brooks, they're 2 peas in a pod, nose to tail. So I'm sure Daniel Angus isn't probably going to be too stoked about that, but it's an opportunity. He's got the priority in terms of track position, and he's going to be trying to do what he can to keep Steve Brooks behind.
So you guys will have to, when the restart starts, let me know. I'll close my eyes. I'll turn away. You let me know when it's over.
You've got to go and do a podium show. I really appreciate you coming up and joining us this weekend. This has been great fun for me. I love my Porsches, and this has been an awesome experience. So thanks for joining us.
All right, lovely to be here. Thanks, guys.
Stu Owers joining us up here from the Pirelli Porsches, part of Next Gen NZ. And this car, this is a quick recovery. So outstanding job by the recovery team and our amazing volunteers that get these race meetings happening. And I wonder if we're going to be able to get this race going again. That's got broken steering,
yeah, it
Ronan
looks like
Murphy.
It's broken a steering arm or a toe link of some sort. It's not looking too healthy.
That's a fairly standard sort of breakage when you get wheel-to-wheel contact. And to be fair, those components are designed to snap to save all the more expensive bits under the front corners of these cars, uprights and wishbones and things like that. So that's a shame. He was driving superbly and was in the absolute box seat, Nick Cupfield, to challenge for a really big race result.
Yeah, and I think out of all of this, it's obviously the time's counting down, so it's time that can't be made up. And I think we're actually about to go green. The safety car lights are out, but the person that's probably got the biggest advantage out of all this is probably Steve Brooks, because now all that margin's been chopped down for him.
So there's 1:56 to go. It'll be 2 laps of racing. And Matt Burton gets clear racetrack. He leads a Pirelli Porsche race outright. But somewhere in the back of shot, there's a host of GT3 Cup cars blazing their way down towards turn 1. Daniel Angus, the first of them, looking down the inside of the green Boxster. He's got Brooks behind him as well. 7th and 8th position on the road. Oh, he squeezes down the inside. Gets it done. The longer Angus can keep Brooks behind him as well. That's a huge advantage. He's done a nice job with the traffic early.
And it's a game of cat and mouse, isn't it? Daniel Angus, he's trying everything he can to run away, keep Steve Brooks behind. But at the same time, in the middle of it all that, they've got a bunch of Porsche Boxsters and 944s to pass.
Brooks still unable to squeeze his way past. Angus doing an awesome job, so he's trying to defend his own position for first of the Cup cars home while navigating these cars that he's gobbling up against one. Brooks looks up the inside at turn 8. We've seen so much overtaking here this weekend, and the 992 car squeezes through to take that position away. The leader is at the hairpin, so Matt Burton has done everything he can to pull away in the little 944, but it's going to give away about 50 k's an hour in a straight line down the back straight. There's the leader, there's Brooks chasing him down.
Yeah, and he's got an angry golden black 992 Cup car with the lights blazing. Now on its way down the back straight. 22 seconds to go.
Oh, Matt Burton needed one more lap of safety car. That's what he needed.
Sure did.
He's going to run out of time by about 1 minute and 30 seconds in this one. The clock will tick to 0 now, and they'll cross the line. And as they do so, Steve Brooks, with a long pit stop penalty, retakes the race lead.
The boys down at James Marshall Motorsport still looking at the times, just checking to see how the consistency for Steve Brooks is looking, and it's actually probably a good chance for those guys. Good data and good information. Obviously, the more time you can spend on the track, the better. And Steve's been double dutying this weekend, or double duty. He's been racing in the Somerset GT series as well, so in the exact same car. So they've been a lot of work for those boys, switching between and getting everything swapped over between the 2 championships. But they've done a great job, and Steve's obviously rewarding them this weekend with a few podium positions.
Well, and a really good read on track conditions for the GR86 race coming up and the next Somerset GT race. So
exactly.
Relevant conditions, it's hot, the track temperature's well above 32 degrees now. So they'll be understanding that. It'll give them an idea of where to set tyre pressures for the Toyotas and for the GT race at about 4:30 this afternoon. A packed program still to come this afternoon. Next Gen NZ here at Taupo, brought to you by Repco. It's been an awesome weekend.
I think Matthew Burton's still actually going to probably steal an outright podium here, because he's still running 3rd at the moment. Daniel Angus and Steve Brooks have both gotten past on him, but he's still running nicely there in 3rd in that orange 944.
Disappointment in Somerset GT, but delight in Pirelli Porsches for Steve Brooks. He wins race 2. And does so with a terrific drive where he had to pass 8 cars in the final 2 laps and did so nicely. Daniel Angus, that's a fighting drive as well to get to 2nd place, and he just got Matt Burton on the final lap of the race, as Ronan Murphy explained. Burton across the line in 3rd. Great drive in the 44.
Absolutely. That was certainly not a bad day when you're racing Cup cars and you come home with an outright podium. So great job from him to hold on and obviously stayed consistent, didn't make any mistakes at the end there, and come home with a trophy. It's not a bad day.
Steph Chambers, 4th place. That's a really good return for her. Tim Robinson, 5th in his 944. Simon Fang in 6th place. Daniel Gross was next. Sullivan fought his way back to 8th position in the end, but that was a comprehensive performance in the end. Steve Brooks did the hard work early, built the big margin, and then charged through the field. The safety car definitely helped him. And if it went 1 lap longer, I'm not convinced we'd be talking about Steve Brooks winning that race. Daniel Angus too. Remember, after the stops, he was last with 10 minutes to go in that race, ended up 2nd.
Well, we can almost imagine as well that last lap, if the safety car lap had gone 1 longer, that when they came across the line, the last lap around would have been the final lap. And Steve Brooks and Matthew Burton, they were It was fingernails between who was crossing that line first.
That would have been the widest 944 in history had that been the case. But history will record Steve Brooks as the winner. A look through for where your favourite driver might be out of this great field of Pirelli Porsches. Really entertaining racing this weekend. Here's the highlights. Race 3 of the Pirelli Porsche Championship. Cup cars at the front of the field. It was a really good start for Angus, and he led briefly Brooks on that run through turn 1. Bowled it wide slightly, and that opened the door for Brooks to get through. He then set about building a margin. Hot track conditions, Ronan Murphy, and there was some errors through that one and some pretty tight racing as well.
Yeah, there was a fair bit of action going on, and especially down there at the last corner, a few miscommunications or misunderstandings with the pit entry. It looked a little bit there. It looked like Jacob Bellamy was trying to get across again the lane, and he got rear-ended, and a bit of a moment there down at A1. 2 or 3 cars going off, bit of Dukes of Hazzard style running out there, Richard.
Yeah, Tim Robinson was off. This was a broken right front corner for Nick Cutfield, I should say, in his Cup car, and that brought out the Toyota GR Supra safety car. So that slowed things down, and then there was a 2-lap dash to the line. Angus and Brooks were carving their way through the Boxsters and the 944s. And at the start of the final lap, this was the key pass, and you are spot on. Had that been the final lap, it would have been basically a dead heat. Great racing in the end, but a great, well-managed drive by Steve Brooks to grab the victory in race 3 of the Pirelli Porsches, and I suspect he'll be pretty happy with that one, Stephen.
Yeah, I think he will be. Actually, he'll get his Pirelli cap on. Steve Brooks is one of the great characters of racing and does give so much back to the sport through his Wolfbrook scholarship, which Blake Knowles is doing in the GR86. But let's just talk about you. How patient are you just sitting there waiting?
Oh, no, I'm not. That's unfortunately why I'm doing this and the Super GT. Just love going back to back. Get me out on the track.
Nice to be back racing in the sun, seeing the sunshine out again.
Mate, it's fantastic. See, it was supposed to rain today, and so with the sun coming out here, it's fantastic. Track conditions are good. Really enjoying it.
All right, get over there. We're going to spray some champagne in a minute. That was, of course, Steve Brooks. You went in second place, Daniel Angus. Where's Daniel Angus? Daniel, get over here. Stop having a yak to yak to him on the podium. Hey, mate.
How are you?
I'm good, mate. Thank you for asking. Must be annoying having him up your tail, eh?
Oh, it was awesome, mate. That's just an epic car. Great battle at the end. It was actually really cool to have the safety car and then juke it out to finish. So just so happy to get back through the field with the Enduro setup, and yeah, just an epic race. So
keep smiling. Get ready to go spray some champagne. Let's get in P3. Matt Burton in the 944. Hey, mate. For a moment, I'm thinking, hang on, this 944 is going to stick out there.
Steve, I tell you what, mate, it's hot out there. I've just come back to the season after 2 years, hiatus, and a new car and new team, and, trying to get everything working again. But, mate, I wasn't expecting to be there, no way. Just did a really quick pit stop, got in there quickly and came out and just smacked those laps out.
Loving it.
Awesome, thanks.
All right, let's get the podium underway, shall we? This, ladies and gentlemen, is the podium for race 3 of the Pirelli Porsche New Zealand Championship. And they just do it anyway. Okay, in third place, Matt Burton. In second place, Daniel Angus. And your winner is Steve Brooks. That is your Pirelli Porsche New Zealand Championship Race 3 podium. Yes, you can spray some champagne if you wish.